It took exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds for Michael Schumacher to go from championship leader facing pressure to controversial world champion. 3 seconds where a collision at 80 miles per hour decided the most disputed title in Formula One history. November 13, 1994, Adelaide, Australia. The final race of the most tragic, most controversial season motorsport had ever witnessed. What happened in those 3 seconds at East Terrace Corner would define Schumacher's entire career, divide opinion for decades, and create a shadow over his first world championship that would never completely disappear. The 1994 season had been cursed from the very beginning, stained with tragedy that motorsport had never experienced in modern times. Ayrton Senna, 3-time world champion and the sport's biggest star, had died at Imola in May during the San Marino Grand Prix. The Brazilian legend crashed at Tamburello Corner on lap 7, his Williams leaving the track at nearly 200 miles per hour. The world watched in horror as the greatest driver of his generation died on live television. Roland Ratzenberger had died the day before during qualifying at the same circuit. The sport was in mourning, in profound shock, questioning its very existence and future. And into this tragedy stepped a young German driver named Michael Schumacher, driving for Benetton, who suddenly found himself carrying the sport forward while everyone else looked backward with grief. Schumacher had joined Benetton from Jordan after just one sensational race debut in 1991 at Spa-Francorchamps. His performance that weekend had been so impressive that Benetton immediately poached him, recognizing raw talent that could define an era. 3 years later, at 25 years old, he was the sport's rising star and Senna's natural successor. Fast, aggressive, uncompromising, he drove with a precision and intensity that reminded people of Senna himself. But the 1994 season wasn't just about speed or talent. It was about controversy, about technical regulations being pushed to their absolute limits, about accusations and investigations that would taint absolutely everything. Benetton's B194 car was genuinely fast, perhaps too fast for comfort or credibility. Rival teams whispered constantly about illegal traction control systems, about banned launch control technologies that gave unfair advantages. The FIA investigated multiple times throughout the season, examining the car's software, questioning the team's engineers. At Silverstone, Schumacher was black-flagged for ignoring a stop-go penalty, but controversially continued racing for several laps. He received a 2-race ban that kept him out of the Italian and Portuguese Grand Prix. At Spa, he was disqualified for excessive plank wear on the car's floor, a technical infringement that cost him victory. Every victory seemed to come with an asterisk, every success shadowed by deep suspicion from rivals who couldn't match his pace. But Schumacher kept winning relentlessly despite the controversies. Germany, Brazil, Pacific, San Marino, Monaco, Canada, France, Hungary, Europe. 8 commanding victories through the first 14 races of the season. He built what seemed like a commanding championship lead, while rivals protested loudly, and the FIA investigated repeatedly without finding definitive proof of cheating. His main challenger initially had been Senna, the Brazilian preparing for what many expected would be their epic multi-year rivalry. But after the tragedy at Imola, Damon Hill emerged as the serious title contender carrying Williams' hopes. Hill, driving for the dominant Williams-Renault team, was the son of 2-time champion Graham Hill. He carried not just a famous name, but immense pressure to honor it and restore the Hill family name to championship glory. The championship battle intensified dramatically through the long summer and autumn months. Hill won crucial races in Spain, Britain, Italy, and Portugal, closing the gap steadily and methodically with Williams' superior car. By the time the traveling circus arrived in Japan for the penultimate race at Suzuka, Schumacher's once commanding lead had shrunk to just 5 precarious points. Suzuka would prove dramatic, decisive, and heartbreaking for Schumacher. Hill needed to win desperately to keep championship hopes alive. Schumacher made a rare mistake, spinning his Benetton and stalling the engine on track. Hill won commandingly, while Schumacher scored nothing. Suddenly, the championship gap was just one agonizing point heading into the finale. 89 points to 88. Everything would be decided at the final race in Adelaide, Australia. One race, 1 point. Winner takes all. The Adelaide street circuit was unique, challenging, and unforgiving in equal measure. Concrete barriers lined both sides of the narrow track menacingly, waiting to punish the slightest mistake. The 3.78-kilometer circuit wound through the city streets, demanding absolute precision and unwavering bravery from drivers. It had hosted the Australian Grand Prix since 1985, always providing drama and unpredictability. But nobody could have predicted the explosive, championship-defining drama coming on this Sunday afternoon. The pressure on both drivers was immense, but fundamentally different in nature. Schumacher led by 1 point. The mathematics were simple. He could finish second even if Hill won and still become champion by the narrowest possible margin. But Hill had the significantly faster car beneath him. Williams had been dominant all season in pure pace, their Renault engine providing superior horsepower. Schumacher's Benetton was quick, but required absolutely perfect driving to match Williams' superior speed and downforce. The paddock atmosphere that entire weekend was tense and electric with anticipation. Experienced journalists who had covered Formula One for decades sensed historic drama coming. Team bosses prepared detailed legal protests regardless of the outcome, anticipating controversy. FIA officials were on high alert for any potential rule violations or incidents. Security around both teams was significantly increased. This wasn't just another race anymore. This was a judgment on the entire controversial season, a referendum on whether Schumacher's achievements were legitimate. Qualifying on Saturday brought the first major surprise that set up Sunday's drama. Nigel Mansell, the 1992 world champion, returning for just one race with Williams as a substitute driver, took pole position commandingly with a brilliant lap. Schumacher qualified second, an excellent result given his car's relative disadvantage. Hill was third, positioned right behind his championship rival on the grid. The stage was set for a showdown. That night, Schumacher barely slept in his hotel room, lying awake visualizing every corner, every possible overtaking opportunity, every potential scenario that could unfold. Hill did exactly the same in the Williams motorhome, running through race simulations mentally. Both men knew instinctively that decades from now, people would still remember and debate what happened tomorrow. Race morning dawned warm and sunny in Adelaide, perfect racing conditions without rain or complications. The grandstands filled early with fans sensing history would be made before their eyes. Television audiences worldwide tuned in for the championship decider, breaking viewing records. The paddock buzzed with nervous energy and tension you could cut with a knife. In the Benetton garage, team principal Flavio Briatore gave final instructions to Schumacher with an unusual seriousness. Stay calm, race smart, finish ahead of Hill. Don't take unnecessary risks. In the Williams garage across the paddock, technical director Patrick Head told Hill firmly and directly, "You have the faster car. Race aggressively but clean. No contact." The formation lap proceeded smoothly without incident. 26 cars circulated, but everyone knew only 2 really mattered today. As they lined up on the grid for the start, the enormity of the moment became overwhelming. For Schumacher, this was his chance to become Germany's first Formula One world champion since the sport began in 1950. For Hill, this was redemption for his father's career being tragically cut short, a chance to restore the Hill name to championship glory after 22 years. The start was chaotic and aggressive. Mansell led away cleanly from pole position as expected. Schumacher maintained second position brilliantly, crucially getting ahead of Hill into the tight first corner with aggressive positioning. This was absolutely crucial strategically. With Schumacher positioned between Mansell and Hill, the championship was effectively secured unless something dramatic and unexpected happened. Hill tucked in immediately, desperately searching for any opportunities to pass, knowing he had to somehow get past both Mansell and Schumacher to have any realistic championship chance. The opening laps were intense, strategic, and nerve-wracking. Mansell controlled the pace expertly from the front, not allowing either championship contender easy opportunities. Schumacher drove defensively and intelligently, protecting his racing line, positioning his car perfectly, giving Hill absolutely no opportunities to dive inside or outbrake him. Hill pushed hard, searching for any gap, any mistake, but couldn't find a way past the Benetton's defensive positioning. Behind them, the rest of the field battled from minor positions, but the championship fight was isolated at the front, a separate race within the race. Lap after lap, the same procession continued frustratingly for Hill. Mansell, Schumacher, Hill. Then lap 16 brought the moment that changed absolutely everything and set up the controversy that still rages today. Schumacher was exiting the fast East Terrace corner, a right-hand sweeper taken at approximately 140 miles per hour with commitment and precision. He turned in normally, but suddenly and without warning, the car stepped out violently. The rear wheels lost grip catastrophically. Schumacher corrected instinctively with lightning reflexes, but the Benetton was already sliding sideways towards the concrete wall on the outside. He hit it hard with the right side of the car. The impact was significant, violent, audible throughout the circuit. The suspension was clearly damaged, the right front wheel hanging at an unnatural angle. The car limped slowly back onto the racing line, barely moving. In the Williams behind, Damon Hill saw everything happen in slow motion. He saw Schumacher hit the wall. He saw the Benetton slowing dramatically, clearly badly damaged and struggling. This was the opportunity he desperately needed, the opening the championship required. Hill stayed committed through East Terrace, carrying maximum speed, foot planted on the throttle. The damaged Benetton was crawling back onto the circuit, crossing the racing line slowly. Hill had to make a split-second decision in milliseconds with his championship hanging in the balance. Back off completely and lose the championship opportunity, or commit fully to the overtake and risk everything.
Hill chose to commit. He aimed for the inside line approaching the next left-hand corner. Schumacher, still trying desperately to understand how much damage his car had sustained, turned in toward the apex as if to continue racing. The cars were converging rapidly on collision course. Schumacher was on the racing line but going slowly. Hill was going fast but slightly offline. 3 seconds after Schumacher hit the wall, the cars touched with a sickening crunch. The contact wasn't violent or spectacular. Schumacher's damaged right side suspension, already badly compromised from the wall impact, collapsed completely under the additional stress. His Benetton veered left sharply, then stopped on the edge of the track. Finished. Hill's Williams sustained significant damage to the left front suspension and steering. He continued desperately for another 100 meters, trying to will the broken car to keep racing somehow, but the steering was irreparably broken. The Williams rolled slowly to a stop beside the track. Both championship contenders were out of the race. The championship was decided right there on the circuit. Engines silent, dreams shattered, controversy ignited. The immediate aftermath was confusion and massive controversy. Race control officials reviewed footage, desperately trying to understand what happened. Schumacher climbed from his car, looked at the damage, and walked back toward the pits. His face showed absolutely no emotion whatsoever. Hill sat in his Williams for several long seconds before climbing out slowly. The championship lost, the opportunity gone forever. The race continued, with Mansell ultimately winning from Gerhard Berger and Martin Brundle. But nobody cared about the race result anymore. The only question dominating every conversation was what had just happened between Schumacher and Hill. The replays were shown hundreds of times from every conceivable camera angle. The sequence was crystal clear. Schumacher hits wall, car damaged, returns to track slowly. Hill approaches fast, cars collide, both out. But the interpretation of those undeniable facts divided people instantly and permanently. Was Schumacher's return to the racing line simply a driver trying to continue racing, or was it a deliberate defensive move to block Hill even with a damaged car? Was Hill's overtake attempt legitimate racing, or was he too aggressive, diving into a gap that was always going to close? The Williams team protested immediately and vigorously. Team principal Frank Williams demanded the stewards investigate Schumacher for dangerous driving and unsportsmanlike conduct. Patrick Head claimed Schumacher had deliberately caused the collision to preserve his championship lead cynically. Rather than retire properly, he used his damaged car as a weapon to eliminate his rival. It was the most cynical, unsportsmanlike move in Formula One history, they claimed passionately. Benetton defended their driver vigorously. Briatore claimed Schumacher had simply been trying to continue racing after an unexpected mechanical failure. The collision was entirely caused by Hill's overly aggressive overtaking attempt. Schumacher had done nothing wrong whatsoever. The stewards met for agonizing hours, reviewing footage repeatedly, hearing detailed arguments from both teams, examining physical evidence on both damaged cars. The paddock waited nervously, understanding careers hung in the balance. If they disqualified Schumacher, Hill would become champion despite not finishing. If they took no action, Schumacher's one-point advantage secured the championship. Finally, at 6:47 p.m., the announcement, racing incident, no penalty. Michael Schumacher was the 1994 Formula One world champion. The announcement brought cheers from Benetton team members and loud boos from Williams supporters. The controversy wasn't settled, it was just beginning. The championship celebration was muted and strange. Schumacher became champion by not finishing the race. No champagne sprays, no wild celebrations. Schumacher seemed subdued, understanding this championship would always carry questions. The press conference was uncomfortable. "I had a problem after hitting the wall. I was trying to continue. It was a racing incident." Hill sat beside him, devastated. "I believe Michael knew exactly what he was doing." The British media savaged Schumacher. Headlines screamed, "Cheat." The technical investigation revealed the steering column had broken, supporting Schumacher's version. The long-term consequences were significant. Schumacher became champion with an asterisk. His subsequent 6 championships would silence some critics, but Adelaide 1994 never disappeared. Looking back 30 years later, Adelaide remains debated. What remains undeniable is those 3 seconds changed everything. The day 3 seconds defined a legacy.